Hello, my name is Vesta and I publish the Sonoma County Gazette. My mission is to get people to actively participate in community life, and part of that is being educated about issues that are important to us and our home. So right now, coming on the November election, we have a ballot initiative. It's called Measure K, and it's about community separators. So what I have here is I have Terry Shore, and Terry Shore is the, what did you say yourself, a regional manager, director of the Greenbelt Alliance. Now, Greenbelt is literally a space between housing developments, shopping centers, and industrial parks. So what happened 20 years ago was our county had the forethought to say, we don't want to become San Jose North. We want to do something that's different and unique and wonderful and that maintains the home that we absolutely love. So they made this whole concept of community separators established so that one housing development doesn't just blend right into the next and blend right into the next with all those little shopping centers connecting them. So community separators, this particular time, it was 20 years that was established for this to exist. That 20 years is now up. And if we want to continue with what we've enjoyed, we need to go to the ballot and this November and vote yes on K. And how does this impact Santa Rosa? Santa Rosa, back in 1972, when I moved to Sonoma County, Santa Rosa had farms. It had cows and horses and fences and lovely fields until things started filling in. And so one of the things that Sonoma County did was to protect those beautiful places so everything didn't fill in. Everything along the 101 corridor didn't fill in. Now, one of the things I've learned from Terry tonight is that she's part of an organization, the Greenbelt Alliance is part of an organization that's actually planning for the future of Sonoma County and actually the whole 9 Bay area that we live in. Instead of things just happening, we can look at San Jose and say, oh my God, what a horrible place to live. It's filled with air pollution and cars and heat, and it's trapped in its own non-planning. But Sonoma County had the foresight to say, we don't want that to happen. So Terry Shore is here to tell us about what we can do to protect ourselves going into the future based on what we have done to protect ourselves in the past 20 years. Terry, would you explain yourself to everyone?
Oh, hi. Well, thank you so much, Vesta. Yes, I am the regional director for the North Bay for Greenbelt Alliance, and Greenbelt Alliance has been working for more than 50 years to protect the Greenbelt around the Bay Area. So we have been thinking about this for a long time, and Sonoma County is on the forefront. Sonoma County had the vision more than 20 years ago to see growth and sprawl coming and decide to establish community separators. So in our very first general plan, the county and the Board of Supervisors mapped out areas between Petaluma and Rohnert Park, between Rohnert Park and Santa Rosa, all the way up the 101 corridor between all the cities, and said that this is going to remain as open and rural as possible.
So one of those things is it allows Santa Rosa to be its own unique community that has open space around it, and then you move on to the next community that has Katati and has open space around it, and Rohnert Park, open space around it, Petaluma, Pengrove, open space around it. So each one is its own island if it's a small city, small town.
Yeah, basically, the purpose of community separators is threefold. One is to preserve the open space and farmlands between our towns and cities, which are the greenbelts, and also to maintain the community identity of each of our 9 cities and unincorporated communities, so they don't blend in together. And so the main purpose is to prevent sprawl. So we see sprawl in a lot of parts of the Bay Area, Southern California, all over the country, and Sonoma County has held it back with the community separator policies.
And one of those benefits is that the air is cleaner, correct?
Yeah, the air is cleaner, and it actually protects by keeping land open. It protects habitat, it protects trees, it protects family farming and agriculture, because it cannot, you can't farm if it's paved over, if it's a shopping mall. So it has climate benefits because it's a climate sink. So there are many, many benefits to maintaining greenbelts in Sonoma County and around the Bay Area.
And that was one of the issues with San Jose. People keep saying, what happened to the farms in San Jose? So much food came from San Jose. It was a very, very rich valley, and it's all paved over. And so there's a source of food that disappeared. And then also the heat rose because there was all that pavement. And then the other part was the water, when it rained, couldn't go into the earth and recharge the aquifers where we get our water. So San Jose lost water, they lost clean air, and they lost a food source in the middle of getting all these buildings, housing developments, shopping centers, and pavements. And so that's part of what we're trying to do, is protect all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And Greenbelt Alliance is actually working in San Jose to help San Jose kind of go in a different direction with what they have available now in terms of more walkable neighborhood communities for new developments. And we'd love to see that happening here in Sonoma County. And Sonoma County, again, is on the forefront because all 9 of our cities have urban growth boundaries. So urban growth boundaries are and community separators are companion measures. So the community separators are in the county lands, the green belts, right outside the urban growth boundaries. The urban growth boundaries, which were voted in the late 90s by virtually all of our cities, is basically a line around the city limits that says we are not going to grow beyond here, and we're going to build efficiently. We're going to build, walkable communities, and that's also very healthy for our air, for our water, for climate change, because it reduces the auto travel. It encourages us to walk and ride our bike where we can. We'd like to see a lot more public transit in Santa Rosa, but we do have the bus system, and pretty soon we'll have SMART. So we're definitely going in the right direction.
So explain a little bit about urban growth boundaries and how they came about, because that's something that a lot of people really don't know about.
Right. So, about 20 years ago, like you were saying, there was a huge growth spurt in the Bay Area, including in Sonoma County. And sprawl was definitely starting to happen. And people here in Sonoma County are so passionate about our land, about our agriculture, about our open space, that we decided to do something. So the cities decided to draw this line around their city. So Santa Rosa did it in 1996. They drew a line. Basically is all it is. The urban growth boundary is a line saying that we're not going to grow beyond this line. And they usually line up with the city limits. And then the vote, there's a vote of the people. So in 1996, there was a vote of the people of Santa Rosa to put in an urban growth boundary. So it can't be moved, it can't be changed without a vote of the people. So you can't just go and lobby the city council and say, oh, we want to put a housing development over here. No, you would have to go to a vote of the people. So it sends a signal that we're going to build our schools, our houses, our businesses within this boundary. And since then, all of our cities in Sonoma County have those, and Santa Rosa has renewed already once its urban growth boundary till 2035.
That was the question I was going to ask. Did it come to an end just like this? The green belt this community separators comes to an end at 20 years. The Santa Rosa had it come to an end at a certain point, and people had to vote on it, and they did. Could you define, just like to say, a neighborhood that is at the edge of the boundary in Santa Rosa? If you were to say, let's go east, Montgomery Village.
No, it's within the urban growth boundary. You mean like what is the edge of the urban growth boundary?
Would be Yulupa?
Well, we happen to have a map right here, and we can, kind of take a look at it and just see where is the edge of the urban growth boundary. It kind of goes down into Oakmont and all around the edge of the city, but this is too small to tell me what the actual streets are.
I was thinking there's a way to actually identify where the edge is so people could get an idea of where's the edge of Santa Rosa. Could you identify it by saying, well, when you head east or west or north or south, you're going to run into a field. And when you run into a field, that's the edge of the city.
Yeah, and probably one of the best examples is going west towards Sebastopol. So when you're heading west, or if you're riding your bike on the Joe Rodota Trail, all of a sudden the houses stop and the wetlands begin. That is the edge of the urban growth boundary. And what we've done with the community separators, there are community separators there that protect a lot of those wetlands and dairy farms out there, and additional acreage has been added this year to those community separators. So those will be protected in perpetuity from any additional development. So that's a really great example of the community separators and how the urban growth boundaries are kind of yin and yang.
So if you head west, one of the things that happens is you run into wetlands. You run into the whole Laguna de Santa Rosa that gets flooded. So
Yes.
a flood zone is a natural community separator because you can't build something on that anyway. What other examples would be? Are they things like ecosystems where wildlife exists, other kinds of wetlands? But what about, say, someone has a farm and it's been declared that it is now a community separator and it can never be built? If the person who owns that farm and wants to sell that land, are they limited onto who they would sell it to? And if so, would the next owner have to be the county or the city in order to keep it a community separator? Who would buy that land if the person didn't want to own it anymore and it was designated a community separator?
Well, it's really a lot more simple than that because the
cool.
community separator is a zoning overlay. So it's a policy protection. And all it really does is maintain existing zoning. So if you're a farmer and you have a farm and you're allowed to grow whatever you're growing, or if you have cattle or cows or vineyards, all it does is maintains that zoning. So you can do whatever you were doing before. And when you sell the land, a lot of the land is private land. Some of it's public, but these are policy measures. These aren't permanent protections like buying out the land. So they can still do what they are allowed to do now, and the next person who buys the land could do the same thing. But what they couldn't do without a vote of the people would be to take that farmland and turn it into a shopping mall, or turn it into a resort hotel, or build 500 houses. So the threshold is 1 unit per 10 acres. That's kind of the bottom line for a community separator. And so it's a zoning overlay, so it doesn't prevent people from doing what they can do now.
But do some property owners object to having their land designated to be stuck being a farm if they wanted to retire and they wanted to sell it to a developer because they would make so much more money and they can't because that land is designated as a separator?
Well, we haven't heard a whole lot of that. I mean, once in a while we hear about that because it does inhibit land speculation. So land speculation is definitely high on the farmlands right around the urban growth boundary because they see dollar signs in their eyes that we could, turn this into a shopping mall. So, I think there are folks who don't like that idea, but the majority of people in Sonoma County are very much in favor of it. And we do have policies to support agriculture. We have the Open Space and Agricultural District, Open Space and Agricultural Preservation District, let's get that right, where we all contribute to a fund to be able to purchase conservation easements so that we can make sure that farmers can stay in farming.
Has anybody done, what is it when you take over somebody's land and tell them they can't do what they want to do?
Eminent domain?
There you go. Has anybody done that one?
Or a taking?
Yeah.
Yeah. People in Sonoma County are pretty well educated, and there are very few people who are thinking along those lines that I've heard from.
Ah, that's good, because I go to some of these meetings and I know the property rights people are concerned about issues like this.
Yes.
And I can see why, because that whole concept of this is my land, I get to do what I want to do with it. But in this case, we're saying, no, not necessarily. Now, one of the things my understanding is that a separator can be land that nothing happens to, land that is agricultural, and land that is a park. Is there any way to identify how much of each of these lands that are currently designated community separators are, and how much of that we've added lands around Santa Rosa? We've added lands to make more space, more open space around Santa Rosa. Are some of those lands currently existing parks or existing open land where nothing's happening, or agricultural?
Well, it's a combination. So let me just backtrack for a minute. The original community separators that were put into place more than 20 years ago, there were 8 of them, and they total 17,000 acres. Most of it is agricultural land. Some of it is parks, and some of it is land that has conservation easements on it.
What's a conservation easement?
So a conservation easement is where the open space district or the land trust or some entity pays the landowner basically for the development rights. So they maintain, and that's mainly done for agriculture. And for land that has a high value for conservation. So the development rights are purchased, so the farmer, the landowner, gets basically a buyout to keep that land the way it is. So there's a combination. So originally we had 17,000 community separator acreages. So this time around, we went back and looked at the county, and the general plan had already designated certain areas that were right for community separators, like between Healdsburg and Cloverdale. There was nothing.
Oh, nothing.
There
Nothing was
wasn't
protected.
anything till now. Nothing was
right.
in a community separator. The area around Pengrove that you talked about, south of Santa Rosa toward Roner Park. Roner Park kind of is one of our bigger cities and grows out, and Pengrove was concerned, and so was the county general plan. So I don't want to get off too far on all this, but so we looked at all these different lands, and the criteria for the lands is, 1 unit per 10 acres or more. Mostly it's private land. It doesn't stop people from doing what they can do now, but it does limit land speculation and change. So we looked at all these, and the county did an amazing mapping job. We had lots of public outreach and public workshops over a period of 6 months. And the final result was an increase in the number of acres from 17,000 to 53,000. And a lot of that was between Cloverdale and Healdsburg, all those beautiful acres along 101, vineyards and rural land, because slowly but surely the development pressures are moving that way, and also south of Petaluma, and yes, around Santa Rosa, particularly along Petaluma Hill Road.
Right. I would think that would be very intense, because you can only go so west, and east is less limited, but south and north, my God, it's beautiful. It's open. It's flat.
Exactly.
That's a
around
developer's
Petaluma,
heaven.
Exactly. So those lands were added, and they're mostly not parks, because parks are protected as parks.
They're also
You know
very
what I mean?
expensive to maintain. So you can't have everything be a park.
Right, and you can't have everything purchased by the open space district. If the open space district, I've asked them, the Bill
Yeah.
Keene, the executive director, what if we wanted to buy all the land that we really want to protect, or just buy the conservation easements? That would cost millions and millions of dollars, and everyone thinks they have a huge amount of money. They have enough to just buy the priority areas. And one of the things we relied on them in this whole community separator process was they had mapped out what's called priority green belts. So priority green belts were areas right around the edge of Santa Rosa and Roner Park that were threatened potentially by development. So most of those were added into the community separators. So again, the landowner can still do what they could do before, but it just makes it more difficult to convert it to sprawl and commercial use. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And does Southeast Greenway fit into this at all? Because that was where the highway was going to go through, and the land has been vacant for a really long time, and now it's being turned into basically a big park, right?
Well, that is a fantastic idea, and that is really different because for a whole lot of reasons that I can't get into.
Greenbelt?
It's definitely a greenbelt. It's within the Santa Rosa urban growth boundary. So that is a fantastic project, and it's getting closer and closer to reality. As you know, it's going through the public process. So, but it wouldn't be considered a community separator because it's in the UGB and it's inside the community. Yeah, so you'd have to go to on the other side of Highway 12 and start going down 12 past Oakmont. That's a community separator down in there. And the Valley of the Moon has increased community separators down in that neck of the woods as well.
So right now, let's say if you were going south out of Santa Rosa, that's when you hit Petaluma Hill Road, and that's where Roner Park, basically Roner Park is growing towards Santa Rosa and filling in all those spaces, and Santa Rosa is coming south and filling in spaces. And what we're saying is we're going to keep a space between those two communities, so you know where one ends and the next begins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you go up Taylor Mountain, you don't even have to go all the way up. You can get a really great view looking down between Roner Park and Santa Rosa, and it's really stark. And that's why some of those lands were added, and you can see where the town comes right to the edge. So it's a really great visual.
And if someone were to purchase a house, could they purchase a house right on the edge of a community separator in the urban growth boundary and know that they will be able to look out their window forever at something open?
Well, yes, in fact, in Roner Park, the one between Roner Park and Santa Rosa, the existing one, which is further south, right off of Snyder, there's actually a walking path that's open to the public if you want to go look at your own. A lot of them are not open to the public because they're not parks, but there is a public path there between the houses and the community separator. And it's a stark line, and there will never be houses there. But there is a proposal to put in an incubator farm there.
Oh,
You
that's
might
the
have heard
incubator
about
farm.
it, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So that's been used for ag before, and so the county's working with the city and the neighbors to maybe put in something there in the community separator, which is allowed. Ag use is allowed.
Agricultural use. And so how does that play into water uses? If it's agriculture instead of an open field, is there an issue around water limitations because it's agricultural? Does that impact anything at all?
Not when it comes to community separator. Of course, water and groundwater management is a whole nother discussion. We could have a whole meeting
we'll do that
just
one again.
discussing.
Yeah.
We'll do that one. So, of course, that all needs to be considered, and can they drill a well or can't they, and how that will impact, the city of Santa Rosa and the city of Roanoke Park. So all those things will be looked at. It's not an automatic.
How would you say that these community separators would protect Santa Rosa as a unique community?
Well, what it does is it makes sure that the county does not build right up to the edge of the city of Santa Rosa. So the city of Santa Rosa has made a commitment to put all its housing within its urban growth boundary. And the City Council of Santa Rosa is doing an amazing job moving forward on housing policies right now because of the housing crisis. So this ensures that their policies remain in place and are not being compromised out on the edge in the county areas with sprawl that defeats the purpose of the city of Santa Rosa. We want to keep the separation. We want to keep the green belts. It's good for the environment. It's good for our health. It's good for our well-being overall.
Yeah, I think a lot of people take for granted that we have this beautiful place to live with our clean air without realizing that these community separators are part of why we have this clean air, why our temperatures are fairly stable compared to something like San Jose, why we have birds, why we have wildlife corridors. I mean, it's amazing. So much of what we enjoy is dependent upon these community separators, and we all take them for granted because they've been around for a long time. And it evolved in a way that no one was really paying attention except for the people who established the community separators. And now we have a choice of continuing that policy or rejecting it entirely and letting the developers take over. So if we don't pass Measure K, would all this land simply be open for grabs?
Well, not exactly. So what Measure K does is puts an additional layer of protection across all the community separators that are in the general plan. So if we add community separators later, they're protected. And basically says if you want to change this to something else, if you want to completely change the zoning, you have got to convince the whole community that this is a benefit. So it has to go to a vote. If Measure K does not pass, and because we're confused or we don't understand it, it passed by 70% before, so we think it is going to pass. But if for some reason it doesn't pass...
Never assume anything.
Yeah, but you can't assume anything. By the way, there's no fee, so some people get confused and think it's a tax, but it's not. This is policy. So so what would happen if it didn't pass? The community separators would stay. They wouldn't disappear,
okay.
And the new ones will all be in there. But it would allow the Board of Supervisors, future supervisors, with a simple majority vote to change it and allow a shopping mall, to allow a resort.
Okay, so that would mean it would take the power out of the people and the voters and put it in the hands of the supervisors.
Correct.
That's like dangerous because you never know who's going to be on the board.
Yeah, and our supervisors now are great. They all voted 5-0 to do this, and 20 years ago they were in support. But again, it's, we don't know what the future is going to hold. And we also know there are very powerful forces out there, moneyed forces that can influence, supervisors. I'm not saying our current ones, but in the future. And so it really is important. And all our urban growth boundaries are also all in the hands of the voters of Sonoma County. And if you look at Sonoma County and you look at neighboring counties, you can see that it's been a really successful formula.
We've actually planned our future because somebody thought about it in the past. And that's the thing I love about the One Bay Area, is actually looking at the future and planning it as opposed to just letting it happen. So this Measure K, it costs people nothing.
Correct.
So all they have to do is vote yes. It seems so simple, doesn't it? What would you do to encourage people to vote yes?
Well, just if they hear nothing else from this TV show today, is vote yes on Measure K. It's for open space and farmlands, and we love open space and farmlands. So there's really no downside. There's no written opposition to the ballot measure. We have a great coalition of folks on board. I don't know how much more time I have, but
She says we got less than 3 minutes.
okay. Well, I thought it's worth mentioning that the folks who signed the pro argument for Measure K was, of course, Greenbelt Alliance, Sonoma County Conservation Action, Sonoma County Farm Bureau. Like 20 years ago, the Farm Bureau signed the opposition argument. So the Farm Bureau is become far more enlightened, and we've been working with them over the years. Katie Jackson from Jackson Family Wine signed on to it, and Mike Bright of Wright Contracting. So that's the other thing that's great about Sonoma County, is that we have enlightened people who understand the value of our open space, not only to our health and beauty, but for the whole economy. I mean, our whole economy is basically built on the green belts. I like to say the green belts are gold mines for Sonoma County. So there's lots of reason you can feel really confident in voting yes on Measure K. There aren't any unintended consequences. There's no taxes, fees. It's all good, really.
So for people who, if there's something to fear, they don't have to fear the agricultural community, because the agricultural community wants this.
Exactly.
It protects agriculture in Sonoma County. The only thing they would fear would be developers.
Developers, and they haven't come out in force yet. We hope they won't, but that's a potential. And thanks to you, Vesta, and everything you do in the Gazette and helping to educate people, I think that we're going to win. And I want to recognize you right now for everything that you've done.
Oh, look at that.
You have published numerous articles about community separators. You've also come to the public hearings and expressed your support. So for this, Greenbelt Alliance would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation, and I thought this was a great opportunity to do it.
That's really sweet. That's really wonderful. I'm totally behind this. I really love One Bay Area. I think the concept of planning for the future is excellent. I think that I'd love to give credit to all the people who thought about this in the past, 20 years ago, and to everybody who's working for it now. We live in paradise, and we all agree we live in paradise. And how can we preserve paradise? And one of the ways we can preserve paradise is to vote yes on Measure K. And it is a Santa Rosa issue to keep Santa Rosa unique. It's a Katati issue. It's a Rona Park issue. It's a Pengrove issue. It's all the way to Cloverdale. One of the things I learned about Cloverdale is that literally 1,000 people a day drive to Cloverdale to go work because jobs are up there. So yeah, it could so easily fill in with housing developments and shopping centers. So this really makes a difference in keeping our air clean, especially as a valley. One of the things in San Jose has a problem is their valley is filled with air pollution. These community separators keep our air clean because there's filters. And I really want to say thank you for the work that you do, because you are part of what is preserving Sonoma County and the precious place that we live in. Do you have anything else you want to tell people? Do you want to send some money in?
Well, go to the Yes on K website, which is keepcommunityseparators.com. Endorse it. You can go right online, and we are asking for contributions so that we can do what we need to do to get the word out to the voters to vote yes on Measure K.
So this is extremely important to the future of Sonoma County, and anybody who's a parent or a grandparent and wants people to stay here, they really better get out and vote on this. It's extremely important for the future of Sonoma County. Thank you so much for listening to us and watching us today.